العالمين صلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. We're going to inshallah ta'ala finish, this will be the last class before we'll do a test, and we'll finish what's remaining of the major issues and then look at some of the contemporary issues or areas of concern. We're on slides number 72. So what's remaining is very little, alhamdulillah, of the masail, the major issues of inheritance. On slide 72 is the issue of the Gharrawain, or the issue of Umarain, the two cases of Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, in which in his Khilafah there was this issue, and many of the issues of inheritance emerged in his Khilafah radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and he solved them with the help and the gathering of the Sahaba. And the mas'ala is to do with when you have a case of two spouses, one of the two spouses, alongside a father and a mother. And so the mas'ala then will be, if you have a husband or a wife and a father and mother, how much does the mother get? That's the surah of the mas'ala. How much does the mother get? And according to Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu's fatwa, that the mother receives 1/3 of the remaining amount after the spouse takes their share, instead of 1/3 of the entire amount. So there's the difference. So we know the mother gets 1/3. That's how she's supposed to get. As this comes in the ayah in Surah Nisa, فَإِن لَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ وَلَدٌ وَوَرِثَهُ أَبَوَاهُ فَلِأُمِّهِ ثُلُثٌ. And if there is no children and the parents are alone inheriting, the mother gets 1/3. But the issue that comes now is that if it's 1/3, 1/3 of what? Of the entire tarika, yani estate, or is it 1/3 of the مَا بَقِيَ, that which remains after the husband and the wife taking their share? So Umar, he passed the verdict that the mother will get 1/3. 1/3 of what is remaining. What is remaining. Not 1/3 of the entirety. Slide 72, brother. 72. Gharrawain. No? Not 72. It's a new one, brother. This is not the... I already sent it. No? What's that? Which one I sent you? 71? 72 on this. So Umar's fatwa then was, it gets 1/3 of what's remaining. What's remaining. Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhu, another group of ulama, they didn't agree with this, and they said that the ayah in Surah Nisa is aam. It's aam. Then therefore the mother receives 1/3 of the entire estate. So because this difference of opinion exists, and it's not a weak difference of opinion, the majority, the Jumhur ulama, they go 1/3 what's remaining. So if someone comes to his mas'ala, they take one of the two views. Going with the view of the majority is safer. But if someone sees the other view, then it's also strong. And the difference of opinion obviously came, وَوَرِثَهُ أَبْوَاهُ. Is this ayah saying that when the spouse takes their share, and then the only two remaining are the husband, father and mother, then they divide? And the wisdom behind it, the ta'leel rationale, is that if we give the father 1/6, the remaining, and we give the mother the 1/3 complete, then in the case we end up with the mother having more than the father, and that goes against, according to Umar radiallahu ta'ala and Sahaba, the usul or the foundations of inheritance, because usually, in most cases, right, there's a group of people who are in asaba, who are in the same category, the males get 2-1, but here it's going to end up with the mother more than the father. Whereas Ibn Abbas and others looked at the ayah and said the ayah is general, whether they're husband, father and mother are inheriting both or out with others, they get their shares. So in any case, if you go to the next slide, we see both examples where you can see the difference between the two. So in the original case, imagine a man passes away, leave behind a wife, father, and mother. Then the estate is 60,000. The wife gets 1/4, and the mother gets 1/3, and the father gets the remaining. Right, so that's according to the original amount or the original rulings that we studied. So in this case, the father gets 25,000, the mother 20, and the wife 15. But if we look at the Umrah's verdict, you give the wife the 15,000 first, then take that from the total, making 45,000 left. Then you divide that 3 to 1, or 2 to 1, giving the father 2 shares, the mother 1. And the reason is that to avoid any case where the mother gets equivalent or close to the amount of the father, using the principle that the mother usually is a female, therefore she should get 2 to 1. That's the logic behind it. And again, we said different opinions there, but you can see the difference that the mother then will get. The father will get 30,000, and the mother will get 15. So 1/3 of 45, she gets to 15. So here, if you look at another example, the wife, husband, the other side, you can see if he did the same thing. Right, so what they do first, you give the wife or the husband their share. Then you take that away from the majority, or from the total. Then what's remaining, you divide into 3. Why 3? 2 to 1 ratio. That's what they say. So in Umar's case, the husband gets 30,000 and the wife gets 15. But in the original case, the wife will get 20 and the father will get 25. In the other situation, if you go to the next one, slide 74, you'll see the father, he'll get 10,000, the wife will get 20. And if your Umrah's calculation, the wife will get 10 and the father will get 20. So in order to avoid those cases where the father gets less or he gets close to the wife, mother's amount, this is what they argued. In any case, it's not too much of a big issue. By going with the majority views, no harm in that. But if someone takes the other view, there's also no harm, knowing that there's a difference of opinion. But when it comes to this issue, the surah of the mas'ala is anytime there's a husband or wife, mother, father, nobody else. So in a situation where the father cuts somebody off, then it ends up with husband, wife, father, mother, still the case, the gharrawain. So anytime you're left with a case where it's husband, wife, and husband or wife, and then mother and father, that's when you have the surah. If the others are there, it's not gharrawain to be correct, unless they're cut off. But it's not too big of an issue, but you can see the difference and the wisdom behind it, because why did they argue there? Based on the usul, the principle, which is that, generally speaking, right, well, the males get 2 to 1 ratio. Although the other response would be that this is not they're not asaba, right? They're not asaba, they're not sharing with anybody. Husband, father, mother are 2 different categories. طيب, let's move on to the next issue, which is one of the bigger ones. The inheritance of an unborn baby. So last week we looked at the inheritance of the missing person. So there are 2 more major cases that we didn't look at, which are similar in the way that they're built, but different in the way that they come across or how you're going to be calculating it. And that's the inheritance of an unborn baby. So in this situation, right, in the case the deceased has an unborn baby as an heir. So for example, husband who passes away and his wife is pregnant. In this case, the ulama generally say that you should not divide the inheritance until the mother gives birth to the child. And that's in order to know the gender, because the gender impacts how much they're going to get. And that's the asl, right? That they should wait for the birth, and after that they should distribute. But let's say they don't want to wait. In that case, the scholars, they say that the heirs, if they demand for their inheritance, that we have the following scenarios. And that means we have to give them their inheritance, because they don't want to wait. Kind of like the missing person. They don't want to wait. Okay, we're going to give them. But what do we give? What do we give and how? So the scholars say this is how it will work out. Those inheritance is not diminished by the unborn child receive their full share. So whoever is not impacted by that gets their share. So who would be an example of that? The mother. Right? She's going to get, if it's a boy or the girl, doesn't matter. She's going to get 1/6. Right? So she's going to get her share. Anyone else? The father? No, it impacts him. How about the husband? He's still gonna get 1/4, right? Because there's going to be fara', is boy, male, or female. So whoever doesn't get touched gets their share. Next, those whose inheritance diminished by the sum calculation receive the minimum. So in the case of a father or others who their amount can go up or down, that's what we mean when we say gets impacted, it can go up or down. What do? We give them the minimum amount. This is like the case of the missing person. You give them minimum amount and you keep aside some for later to figure out. Those whose inheritance is excluded means those who get cut off. If there's for example, let's say a male, because the son is the big one, right? If it's a son, someone may get cut off. In that case, that person doesn't get anything. Like the missing person, for example, uncle, right? In case the missing person, the uncle doesn't get anything, right? If he gets the least amount, he's gonna wait, right? Because he's probably gonna get cut off. In this case, we'll put the people who get cut off, we'll leave them aside. As for the unborn baby now, this is the question really. What about them? So the scholars say that since there's many possibilities, up to 6 different possibilities, male, female, one female, twin, 2 females, 2 males, which one should we calculate? Which one should we use? The ulama say we should use the highest possible outcome, which is the share of 2 male boys, 2 male twins, because that will yield the highest possible amount. And why is that? Because if it goes more than that, still they're going to end up sharing. So 2 male twins are the highest amount the ulama say you should estimate, because number 1, twins are more common. Number 2, 2 males give the most amount, and so therefore going with ghalab al-dhann, the most likely preponderant opinion or possibility is that not she give birth to 4 sons. It's possible, but that's قاعدة فقهية, fiqh maxim, والنوادر لا حكم له, right? Rarities have no rulings. الحكم للغالب. So they say then 2 male twins are more likely to happen as the highest possible case according to our urf and our aada. So that's what we're going to use. And if after the birth, the child who's born is 2 male twins, then no problem. If it's not, you recalculate, you redistribute. So what's going to happen at the end of this case, the share for the unborn child will be 2 male twins. That's the point you have to memorize. 2 male, 2 boys who are twins. So that means 4 shares. And everybody else will get the least amount or the amount they deserve. So if you want to summarize it, everyone will receive either. Whoever is not affected will receive their amount. Whoever is affected get the least amount. And whoever is going to be sharing, right, or is impacted to the point to get cutting off, either gets cut off or you get the least amount. So an example, if you go to the slide 76, you can see a man passes away leaving behind a wife, a mother, an unborn baby, and a paternal brother. So here the solution, we will give every heir the lowest possible share and reserve the share of 2 males for the unborn baby. So 1/8 for the mother, because it doesn't matter if it's a male or female, the fara' is there, the subsidiary, so she gets a 1/8. The mother gets 1/6 because there's again subsidiary heirs. As for the unborn baby, since there's 2 males, right, that means a male subsidiary heir will cut off the paternal uncle. So we're going to reserve 17 shares for the unborn baby, 4 for the mother, and 3 for the wife. So the mother and the wife don't get really impacted if the child is not 2 males. But who will get impacted? In this case, right, the paternal brother. But what about if the paternal brother, right, if the unborn baby is a female, what happens? 1 or more females. What happens for the paternal brother? He gets a ta'seeb, because he's not going to cut off now. So how much then would unborn baby get? If it's 1 daughter and it's 1 of them, they're going to get what, half? Right? Yeah, half. If there's 2 of them, 2/3. So he still can get cut off there. So that's why they say you leave the 17 the maximum share and you wait. So really, every wife and mother, don't worry. It's just the son, the newborn. Whatever they come out, we're going to adjust. So the paternal brother can come back in or he can get kicked out. So the point is, why do you keep 17? To give him the child the possible right. And if it's too much, then it can be, obviously, it doesn't get cut off, he gets it. And if he gets cut off, then no harm. But we said before, Sharia goes on the huquq, everyone's rights. وَأَعْطِي كُلِّ ذِي حَقٍّ حَقَّهُ. Give everyone they do rights. So it's not allowed for us to give him less and say it could be a daughter. Now what about in today's time when someone says, well, we have a possibility, because now we have ultrasound, all this stuff, it's not really, we're not guessing too much. So in those cases, right, you can use those qara'in as well. Well, it's possible. But also, in most cases, if it's unborn baby, I don't think people are going to be in too much of a rush to distribute. But if they are, then this is what we do. Okay, that's how they go. Does it make sense? It's not too hard, right? It's kind of similar to the missing person, but you have to remember two male boys, and two male twins. That's what you're supposed to remember, the two twins, as the standard for the unborn baby. Let's take a look at a case number now. It's number 70, page 77. And we're going to practice this one. A woman died, leaving behind a husband, pregnant mother, and sister. Estate is worth 12,000. What is the preliminary distribution of the estate? Preliminary means how much we're going to give, as is right now, without knowing, right, who the son or the unborn child is. Okay, so we're going to practice that one, inshallah. If you want, you can make another case. So what if it's a daughter? What would happen? So now we're gonna assume it's what? The unborn baby is two twins, right? Sorry, twins, two brothers. Yeah, sister, full sister, paternal. Yeah, we'll say it's full sister. Okay, so what do we get? There's no answer there, so you have to tell me. How much does the husband get? Yeah? He gets half? Yeah, but how much is he going to get in the case first, in the window? 1/4. Why? Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's a fara', right? The unborn baby. Remember, the pregnant mother. And then there's she's pregnant, right?
The mother is in proportion to, so the wife is one that passes.
A woman passed away by a husband, a pregnant mother, a full sister. Or it should be the other way around. Should say pregnant wife. That should probably say. Is that what you guys did? So how would you guys interpret it? Pregnant wife? Pregnant mother? Okay. Pregnant mother. Okay, good. So what did you do? Pregnant mother? What did you do? Okay, so we start that. So it's a husband, pregnant mother, and a full sister. Okay, so husband gets 1/2. Okay, and then the mother gets 1/6. Okay, and then unborn baby. Okay, 2 brothers share with 2 to 1. So who is this pregnant mother? That child is who to the sister? It's a brother, or in this case, 2 brothers. Okay, you get it? Yeah, so that's it. That's the answer. So how much then the husband will get right now? He walks with 6,000. Okay, good. And then the mother? So these 2,000. And then what's left over? So the sister will get how much? 800. Is that correct? Yeah, so well, how many? It's 2 unborn brothers. The brothers are 2. Yeah, by 5. Yeah, you guys got that? So how many sons are there? How many brothers she has? Potentially 2. So there's 4 shares for them, then plus 1 for her. 5 shares. So how much? 800. That's for the sister, and then the brothers, if they're brothers or not, they get the remaining. How many of us we got that? Yeah, you guys forgot the part about the 2 to 1, huh? Everyone gets 2 to 1. So the one brother 2 to 1, another brother 2 to 1. So 4 for them, 2 and 2, and then 1. Why? Because the son is always 2 to 1 to his sister, and the other son 2 to 1 to his sister. So you'd be divided by 5 shares then. Yeah. So some of us did 3 shares. Yeah, you're giving the brothers less, man. Come on. So think about it. Each brother is 2 to 1. So one brother gets 2, and then his sister gets 1. The other brother gets 2, and his sister gets 1. Make sense? The logic behind it is simple, but the problem is the pregnant mother. So what you have to figure out is like, who is this child to the sister, and who is it to everybody else? If it was a pregnant wife, it's going to be different, right? But you get the idea. It's not hard. We got to be careful with that calculation. Okay, let's move along here. The inheritance, so the solution then was 1/2 for the husband, 1/6 for the mother, and then the unborn baby, 2, what you're saying, 2 males, they're going to share with their sister to a ratio of 2 to 1. Okay, the inheritance and hermaphrodites. This is a very rare situation. So the hermaphrodite is a person who's born with both sexual organs, meaning male and female. And often cases, especially in today's time, is very rare. Right? So it's not really a big mas'ala that comes anymore as much because of the easiness to identify the gender, and also the fact that the past, the ulama, they would mention different ways to determine the gender. So you have to determine the gender before we give them their inheritance. But let's assume that it's too confusion. Now this is like a situation where it's unclear to anybody. And they mean by that is that they have both private parts, but it's not clear if they're more masculine or more feminine. And this is how you determine what's more ghalib, what's more. Either, right, these scholars have many criteria to use, and all kind of qara'in, indicators. In today's time, we have also technology to help us with that, so we could even go beyond that, looking at the DNA and stuff like that even further. But the point is, you try to determine it. The first case scenario, there's 3 possible scenarios. The first one, if the hermaphrodite cannot be distinguished as male or female, then the matter is left until they reach puberty, they reach puberty, and as signs become apparent, which gender are they. So that's the ideal case. You don't solve until you figure out if they're male or female. The second scenario, if the division of the inheritance is needed before then, in the situation that, again, the heirs want to know, they want to get their share and they can't wait. So in that case, you have to divide right? According to two possibilities. One, you make one case based on the fact that the hermaphrodite could be female, and another one as they can be male, and he and the other heirs, it's all of them, are going to give in the lesser of the two shares, and the remainder is left until the matter becomes clear. So again, you see the same pattern. You leave behind some in case that this preliminary distribution is not correct. So you give them a share of, right? You make two cases, male and female, and give them lesser of two. Now the situation, the third scenario, if he dies, or they die, right, the hermaphrodite, we don't know, because they died before puberty, we're not sure what gender they are. In this case, the ulama differed. What should we do in this case? And they say that if it's impossible, because now they died and we don't know, then this hermaphrodite will inherit, even though they passed away, they will inherit half the share of the male and half the share of the female. Why? Because we don't know if they're male or female. So they weren't right in the middle. Because we can't go to yaqeen wa naghrab al-dhann. So we're going to just go in the middle. And the ulama differ on this, because different views. But why is it? Because imagine there's the heir, we don't know. They passed away, they're male or female. If we give them female, we give them less share. Why? If we give them male, we give them more share. Why? So they say go in the middle, inshallah, wallahu a'lam. Right? Again, this is very rare, but that's the case we're looking at. We're looking at that one. As for the other two cases, they're clear. You wait, then you give them the judgment. Otherwise, we already studied. Leave behind the share. The missing person is similar in this case. Leave behind, give everyone lesser, and wait. The third one is the one you go in the middle. Right? So this is, again, very rare case. But how will you do it? Let's take a look. So on slide 79, let's take a look at this one. A man passes away leaving behind a hermaphrodite full sibling. Gender cannot be determined. A wife and a mother and a full uncle. The estate is worth 42,000. So here the solution, we'll make two solutions. One as a full brother and another as a full sister. Because what's the surah of this mas'ala? Their full sibling is a hermaphrodite. We don't know their gender and they've died. Right? Or they cannot be determined. Either they died or we don't know. Right? So it means the best, maybe I should put the wording, they died. That's a better wording to say that. Because when will you not know their gender? Either they're dead and underneath age puberty. Other than that, you can tell their gender because as they get older, it becomes clear, or so through scientific inquiry, we'll find out. So the only case this surah comes is that they die before the age of puberty, and we don't know. So that's maybe, inshallah, I'm going to fix the question. That's the exact scenario. Otherwise, so what will we do? So this is how we'll do it. Right? So in the first case, we'll assume they're male. The second, we'll assume they're female, and then you put them together. Now, of course, different ways of doing this, but this is just using our window. So the wife will get, in the first case, if the hermaphrodite sibling is a male, the mother is still going to get how much? Is it 1/8 or 1/4? Let's see here, male. So it's a sibling. Sorry, yeah. So it's not a what's it called? Fara'. So she's going to get 1/4, and then the mother gets 1/6. Is that correct, or is it 1/3? Huh? Is there a hermaphrodite, a sibling? Mother should get 1/3 or 1/6? 1/3, yeah, we're going to correct that, sorry. So we're going to fix that. It's supposed to say 1/3. So we'll fix this here now. So the mother's supposed to get 1/3. So that's going to be 4 out of 12. And then the hermaphrodite will get, the male will get the remaining, which is 5, right? Correct? Is that correct there? Okay, so the mother gets 3. Yeah, 5 for him, right? Okay, now the next case, the mother still gets 1/4. The wife will get 1/4. The mother gets 1/3, so still the same. And how much will female get? So if it's a female hermaphrodite, you're gonna get 1/2, which is 6. So how much is that now? 13. It's going to become awal, so he's still out, uncle. Okay, I'm fixing it right now, guys. That one. And then the solution. So that one we have to change it. We have to put it here. Put it up. That one. So the second case turns to 13, correct? No, afwan, it's not. It's a hermaphrodite's. What is a sibling? Sibling of the of the man. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Okay, I get it. So it's not 13, sorry. So the hermaphrodite we can get, instead of the 5, I mixed up, I read my own question wrong. So the hermaphrodite sibling of the man passed away, full sibling, wife, mother, and full uncle. So the first one's a 5, he cuts off the uncle. The second one, sister gets 6. And then the uncle's out again. And the last one now. Now the last one, we put both cases together. Which is gonna make it 20, I think it's 25 it's supposed to be. So we move it to 25 total, I think. So he's supposed to get 11 out of 25. How much is that? 44%. Before. Oh, that's too much. It's supposed to be higher. Sorry, guys. This whole thing changed it. You could do that too, yeah. There was a question after, so I'm gonna fix this one. But if you want to see the next question, it's on page 81. Hopefully this one's easier to do. Maybe for this question I did, it made everything difficult because I became owl. So go to page 81 for now. Look at that question. A wife that dies, leaving behind a husband, a father, mother, and child who's hermaphrodite. This one's a little bit easier. So let's work on that one and let me fix this one. Okay, so slide 81. Okay, you guys work on this one. I'm gonna correct this other one. So you combine them, and in the base, you're gonna make the base double. Or you can do that, you can divide it. So either you make the base double or you divide to total what it's supposed to get. Yeah, both, yeah. That's either way. Are we done? No? Okay, so anyone finished? Okay, so what do we get? Okay, so the husband gets 1/4 in both cases? Yeah, okay, so that's 3 out of 12.
Father gets 1/6.
So for if it's a male, he gets 1/6 residual. So this case is a residual. Yeah. One share. So let's do the male one first. So male, if he's a male, the husband gets 3 out of 12, 1/4, and the father gets 1/6, which is 2 out of 12, and then the mother gets 1/6, 2 out of 12, and then remaining goes to the son, which is 5. Okay, now what about if it's a female? So what changes? Who gets half? The daughter. Okay, so how much is that? 6, and then how the mother gets? So 2 again, and father gets? The father. He gets the remainder, which is 1, and then the husband, he gets how much? 1/4. Okay, so then combine them. So the base will be then both cases together. So how much we had in the first case? 12. So 24 will be our base. So what do we do then? Add them together. So what do you get for the father? He gets 3. Okay, and the husband 6, and mother 4, and the other one, the hermaphrodite, 11. So what's the change? Right? Who can calculate the percentages? Okay, so yeah, we saw about 4. I forgot to do the numbers. Yeah, let's do the math now. So everybody got that much, or no? Who's confused? That makes sense. The female one. So the base is 12. The husband will get 1/4. That's 3 out of 12. The father will get whatever is remaining. He only gets ta'asib. Why does he get ta'asib only? Because it's a female fara', right? So it's a daughter in this case. So he'll get what's remaining. So we're going to put him out for a second. Mother gets 1/6, which is 2. And then the hermaphrodite will get the 6. So that means 1 for the father. So 12 for the base, 3 for the husband, 1 for the father, 2 for the mother, 6 for the hermaphrodite. When you put it together, you get 6 out of 24. So if you calculate it, the father still gets, the husband still gets 25%. The father will get 4 out of 24, which is still the same, right? So 1 divided by 12, it didn't change? Right? It's 3, not 4, it's 3 out of 24. So 3 out of 24, he gets 25, okay, and then the mother gets 4 out of 24, which is, how much is that? 4 out of 24, it's still 1/6, yeah, it doesn't change. And hermaphrodite gets 11 out of 24. So how much is left? So what is remaining? So we're going to keep, that's what we're going to keep it. That's it, because we don't know the gender, so we can't leave anything aside. We leave it like that. And the reason why this case like this is because the hermaphrodite's gender we don't know. So we gave everybody, right, what they deserve, and then the father, his situation changes more than anybody else. Why? Only because we don't know if it's a male or a female. Otherwise, what was the maximum he could have got? Maximum he could have got was 2 out of 12. How much is that? Still 1/6. And this time he gets 1 out of 12, and he ends up with still 3 out of 24, which is, it's about 3 out of 24 is 1/8. He gets 1/8, right? Yes. So that's the thing. So if they passed away, then it's just like any other sibling. So yeah, so their wealth will be 11 out of 24 here, and then just going to go back to normal. So they'll be distributed to whoever else is there. In this case, if this case is a son, and he died, nobody, then the parents, will come, and his siblings. So the situation with the deceased hermaphrodites will be easier because we just follow the same rules. It's only when he's an heir which gets complicated because we don't know. And that's why this is the view of, not all scholars, but this is the view of a stronger view. You go in the middle, I believe the Hanbali view and others, they hold this view because it's the more fair way, they say. So we'll leave that. The other case I was looking at, I guess it's probably easy to put as a child, right? Otherwise, if I change it to sibling, it's still the same idea, but we'll leave that for now due to the time. Let's go to the last section, and then we'll do some of the contemporary issues, which is slide 82. The inheritance of the Dhul Arham. That's the inheritance of the people who are kindred by blood. In other words, all relatives who don't inherit by fard wala ta'sib. So who are those? Those are mainly the female relatives or the descendants of the people who don't inherit. So in any ways, easy definition, whoever doesn't get fard wala ta'sib, they're Dhul Arham. That's it. If you're not from the people of prescription or the residual heirs, you're considered the kindred by blood. And the ulama, they differed on this. And the reason is because they said that since there's no fard wala ta'sib, should we give them or not? So one group of ulama said, no, you just give the money to Baytul Mal. That's it. Or some they said that we should give it to them. And some they disputed and said, well, in this case, right, we don't have any proof, so we give it to them, but out of honor, not out of obligation. But if you go to the Quran and Sunnah, we can see evidences as well with the Sahaba that that's the best view, that you give them from what's remaining. So in the Quran, again, chapter 33, verse 6, Surah Ahzab, Allah says, the blood relations among each other have closer personal ties. So Allah refers to the Ulul Arham, even though some ulama say it's not about them or not, but still, that's general wording. They also use the Hadith Miqdad. This is strongest evidence, where Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, a maternal uncle is an heir of him who has none. Hadith Sahih Sunan Abi Dawud. So this hadith is the foundation of the mas'ala because Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam made that case that there's such a inheritance for them. So obviously, if someone said it's not obligatory, true, because they're not usually heirs, but it's the fact that he considered them heir. And hadith is Sahih according to Shaykh Al-Albani, then that's the decisive evidence. وَالْخَالُ وَارِثُ مَنْ لَا وَارِثَ لَهُ. That's the wording, right? So it's very clear then. Khal which is the maternal uncle who doesn't inherit, is inherited if one doesn't have inheritance. And also the khilaf of Umar passed the verdict as well, or his own judgment, that he divided inheritance between a paternal aunt and a maternal aunt, treating the paternal aunt as a father and the maternal aunt as a mother, giving them therefore the paternal aunt 2/3 and the maternal aunt 1/3. Right? So the idea was that he can treat them as they are. And we're gonna see what does that mean. Essentially, whoever's you come through, you treat it as that heir. You take in the place of the person they're standing in for. So he treated the paternal aunt as a father and the maternal aunt as a mother. So the mother gets the 1/3, and what's remaining goes to the father. In this case, the paternal aunt represents the father because she comes by way of the father. And the maternal aunt is treated as a mother because she comes by way of the mother. So that's the qa'idah. So if you want to look at the case, you look at slide 83. The qa'idah, the dhabit, you remember, each of the kindred of blood, each of these heirs takes the place of the one through whom they are related. So whoever's heir they come through, right, so that heir passes to this heir, and that heir is one of the inheritors, they take the same ruling. So to make it easier, here's an example. Man dies behind a granddaughter from his daughter's side. So remember, granddaughters are always from the son's side, but this is a daughter, and a daughter of his full sister. So we have then the granddaughter from the daughter is considered a daughter. Why? Because she comes through the daughter. So think about if you made a tree, granddaughter is here, then it goes her daughter, and then deceased. So because she's an heir, she's the subsidiary of that person who's actually an heir, takes the same hukum. The daughter, the full sister, takes the ruling of the full sister. That's it. So they're going to get half for the granddaughter, right, and the remaining, right, is for the full sister. In another case, she also gets half. In this case, they both get half. So this issue you don't have to worry too much because it doesn't happen too much. Because there's always more heirs than less. But if there isn't, all you have to do is just trace the person's lineage. Whoever you find the heir, that's where they're going to come from. The closest one, they also say, not the furthest. So then there are also levels. Someone say, how about levels? Well, then that's another issue too. Do they cut each other off? The best thing is once you convert them into the heir they come through, then the rules of hajib also apply. Right? So for example, we were to imagine a full brother and a paternal brother. Generally, the full brother cuts off the paternal brother, correct? So imagine now you have the sons, right, or daughters. So the daughter of the full brother and the daughter of the paternal brother are existing. What happens here? So one will go down. So this one will be considered a full brother. This daughter considered a paternal brother. Then this one will cut off this one. Like same rules. So that's it. So that's why we don't have to worry about this too much because it doesn't happen often. But if you were to calculate, that's all you do. Just trace the lineage. Well, where does it go? طيب, that's the major issue. These are the, alhamdulillah, we finished with that. That's the major issues in this topic. All right, so alhamdulillah, I think we did all the cases, which leaves some topics that people ask about and some issues that come up of the newly emerging issues regarding inheritance and also things related to it. So inshallah, we'll try to cover some of that before we finish. And next week we'll do the test then. Right, inshallah ta'ala. So we should be able to do all different cases, right? Or if we would give a big case, you should be able to see all the rules, what you should be able to do. Let's talk about the first mas'ala that usually people ask about. Inheritance of haram money, securities, investments, insurance, whatever. What's the hukum on that? Does that count as part of the tarika or not? Part of the estate or not? Here the ulama, they differed in the sense that traditionally the scholars, they mention the mas'ala which is there in the books of fiqh. Mal, money which is haram, is it counted as a part of someone's gift, inheritance, or spending money? And they have two opinions, the ulama. And this is because they looked at the issue from the angle of the money that it is. So from that is that they said, one group, that it's haram. This money is haram for the kasib wa ghayrihi. Sorry, with the kasib, right, for the one who earned it, right? It's not allowed for him. Wala li ghayrihi, not for others. But then they also say, not for allowed for him and others. Both people can't take it. It's haram for everybody because it's haram money. So haram for the one who earned it, haram for the one who receives it. And this is the qawl al-jumhur. And the second opinion is that it's haram, the sin being on the one who earned it, but it's halal for the one who didn't. In other words, if somebody receives it in a different halal way, it's halal for them because they didn't earn it. The dhimma, the sin, right, of this act of how they earned it goes on the one who earned it, not the one who received it. As long as the one who received it in a permissible way. So here, obviously, this is a view also of the Malikiyah. The second view is a view of some of the Hanafiyah, Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen, and some of the Salaf, Hassan, Basri, and Zuhri. And the mas'ala obviously is one that a person has to understand where is it coming from. The issue goes to the origin. So if we extrapolate today, inheritance of haram money, either is going to be haram for the man who earned it. Now he dead, so he should have repented. But let's say he repented or not, the money is still with him. It's haram for him, even though he earned it. And it's haram for the people after him. Second opinion, he's the one who got the sin, the rest of the people can get it because inheritance is a halal sabab, a halal permissible way to gain wealth. And we look at both views, they have an argument, right? But the crux of the matter is, if you change the way you earn something, does it make the money halal now? Means if I gain the money, I didn't earn in haram way, I received it as inheritance. Whereas the earner earned it bil mu'awadah. Maybe he did transaction, he did a haram thing. So we have to know in Islam, when something is haram, haram is two types. Haram li ghayrihi wa haram li dhatihi. And this is important. Shaykh Uthaymeen, this is his view, and it's a strong view. And that's why this mas'ala, the best opinion, you just ask, you raise it to the person of knowledge you trust to look at it. But the issue, Shaykh Uthaymeen mentioned that since money is two types, haram in and of itself, and haram due to earning. And the way you have to understand is that something haram in and of itself is like what? Like alcohol, and pork, and gambling, right? The stolen goods, right? Even gambling, it's haram, but it's haram due to how you earned it. But let's look at the example, something haram bi'aynihi. So stolen good is a good example. You stole someone's car, you can't inherit it, somebody else. It's stolen. It's not your money. So that's haram li'aynihi, in and of itself, nafsihi. Haram li'ghayrihi means haram in the earning, not haram in its essence. So the money isn't haram, but you got it in a haram way. That's why it's called li'ghayrihi for other reasons. And a lot of haram today's time is haram li'ghayrihi, la lidatihi, wa li'aynihi. So we have to understand this. So today someone gave you a gift. The question really, the mas'ala is, this money he gave me, haram li'aynihi or li'ghayrihi? Right? What is this? He earned it haram way. It's not the same he gave you haram stolen wealth. And so therefore, Shaykh Uthaymeen, he holds that view. And again, the Jumhur, they have their arguments as well. And it applies also to issues of receiving gifts for them. Shaykh Uthaymeen, when he discussed this issue, he mentions, after he brings this point, that some of the ulama say that something is haram likasbihi, يعني لغيره, is the ithm ala kasib. The sin is on the one who earned it, not on the one who gained it through a permissible means. And there's a difference of opinion. He said, but Rasulullah, he used to do transactions with the Jewish people at his time, and they used to eat, right, or consume riba or other things. Nabi Sallallahu also he accepted their gift of a sheep and khaybar and other cases. So he's receiving wealth, which is suht, illegal earned wealth from them, as a way of what? As a hadiyah, as a gift or a hiba. And he's accepting it. Why is it allowed? Because for him it's a gift, and for them it's a haram earning. Right, so that's it. And also you can go to the hadith, the asl of this, it's a qa'ida fiqhiyya as well, but it comes from the hadith of Barira. Right, and this is very important because this mas'ala, if you understand the ikhtilaf there, you understand that the ulama, when they have two opinions, you understand where it came from. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the best example to show you this principle, Hayda Aisha, for Bukhari Muslim. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam one day came to his house and he needed something to eat, they didn't have anything. And later when he came back, he found some meat. And it was given as a sadaqah to Barira. And we know the Anbiya wa Rasul, specifically Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, they don't eat from the zakat. Sadaqah bihi means here it's a zakat. So Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam generally doesn't eat from that. Right? He only eats from the gifts. Right? It's a sign of prophethood. So when he came in, he found that, he told her, give me some. He said, Rasulullah, this is a sadaqah. He said, huwa laha sadaqah. For her it's sadaqah, walana hadiyah. And for us it's a gift. What does that mean? I'm getting it as a gift. She got it as a charity. Changing in the asbab means changing as if you changed fil a'yan. The qa'ida fiqhiyya then says, change in the means is if you change the entity. See, it's very important. Hadith Bukhari Muslim. Nabi is eating. Otherwise, it's not allowed for him to eat that, right? So they take from this. Shafi'i uses istillah, and this is one of the principles in this mas'ala. Again, like I said, difference of opinion, but it's a strong wedge, it's a strong point. Because now it shows us that because there's a change in the means, wealth that's earned haram way, how do you get rid of it? That's another argument, because the Jumhur, they're looking at it, the fact that it's haram, So therefore, the ownership doesn't belong to the person. He has to get rid of it. So therefore, if he's getting rid of it, he can inherit it. That's what Jumhur is saying. Jumhur is saying this is haram money. Haram money, you do takhallus, you just get rid of it. There's no inheritance here. You just get rid of it. But also, because it's haram, he doesn't own it. Right? So he earned it a haram way. But the other group is saying, well, it's true that that person has sinned for that. When he gives it as sadaqah or takhallus, he got rid of it. You give it to a poor person suht, illegal things. So most of the scholars agree from all of them that when you give the haram money, riba, to the poor person, it's halal for him, halal for you. Correct? But the problem with inheritance is that who's going to eat it? Your children. And they're from your kasb as well. So that's why the ishkal is there to you. Right? Some people say, I'm going to pay my bank riba with my light bill. You can't do that. You have to do takhallus. They give it to somebody else. You can't just take riba money and pay your bills. You pretty much pay yourself. Right? So that's wrong. So you have to do, you get rid of it. But when you look at the mas'ala, you can see now where the issue is coming, which is that if we agree that this wealth is haram for the one who earned it, but not haram for the ones who gained it through halal means, then that, according to that opinion, you can take it. The other opinion is, this is haram money, you have to get rid of it, as the Jumhur ulama would say. Therefore, before the inheritance is done, if haram money is taken out. If you don't know how much of it, then you estimate. Right? The Shaykh Ibn Taymiyyah, others, they mentioned these fatwa. You estimate how much, you take it out, and then you do the inheritance. The reason why this is important is that you have to raise a person's knowledge to look at it, and then based on what they might give you an answer or discussion, you can follow that, especially in these cases, because sometimes the money that's inherited can be a lot, or it can be money that's mixed, which is another issue. So sometimes what happens is some money is clearly haram, but it's mixed with a lot of other money. So a person who, usually wealthy people, have some kind of mixed income, right? In their investments or something they mixed up with something else. So we're not going to say the whole thing is haram, right? Because if you go on that salah, there's no inheritance. It's just going to be debt, right? Because you got to say all this money is doubtful. So we're going to have to be careful with this, because look at it. But also we have to understand the difference between halal money, which is halal in of itself, earned it in the wrong way. You have to understand that. And then also an issue comes, which is the person who repented from it versus the person who didn't, or the person who engaged in it and then they found out it was haram not knowing. That's also an issue for the one who's alive who earned it. So that's another issue. The one who earned it, right now we're talking about he died already, he left the money. What about if he earned it himself and he has it in his pocket and he made tawbah? Does he keep or doesn't keep it? So the question is going to be, did he know it was haram what he was doing or not? If he didn't know, he makes tawbah, he keeps it. If he knew and he did it, then he has to get rid of it. Right? Because you can't, right, deceive Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You knew it. But the issue obviously is that when we look at this issue, we have to be careful because of these possibilities. And also ulama say if someone did something haram thinking it was halal, someone misled him. Right? So we always forget. People don't just buy stocks because they just are always greedy. Right? Some guy said it's Sharia compliant. So that's another thing. If someone took a fatwa, someone was wrong, it's still allowed. He can take it because he was ignorant. Right? Because the other guy told him wrong opinion. Why is this mas'ala important? Because of this tafsir, it's best to raise the person knowledge. Because at the end of the day, right, it requires people's huquq, and so there can be a proper estimation of what to do with it. And that's why if you look in the Quran, Allah tells us in the Quran, the real halal money is halalan tayyiba, halalan fi nafsihi, tayyiban fi kasbihi. Right, so you read the tafsir, halalan tayyiba. These two words are interchangeable. Halalan in of itself, li'aynihi, tayyiban fi kasbihi. Today we have the problem with a lot of money is haram li kasbihi. So there's hope. Right, for some people, like they can make tawbah, but let's say we tell them haram li'aynihi, no. Right, so that's why it's important to know this mas'ala, because you will see that sometimes people come with, repented with a lot of money, and so what do we do? What do we tell them? Right, that's why we have to have these details. But that's a question you should raise to a person. When inheritance comes, it's best to raise someone knowledgeable to give them the verdict from the beginning. Second issue people ask, what about women receiving less than men? Right, a lot of the non-Muslims and the Muslims as well, they have this problem. They say, why women get less? So the first problem obviously is the question is loaded questions, why do women receive half? So Shaykh Hassan said, first of all, this is not correct wording, half. Allah says the man, he gets double the portion. Use the correct wording. Not half, he gets double. Say it correctly. Why? Because when you say it's half, as if you're cheating her. Where is that coming from? So Shaykh Hassan in his tafsir, he said this is wrong, this expression. Surah Tafsir, Surah Nisa, page 64. He says that the male gets a portion equal to that of the two females. Allah didn't say half, and thus if a female gets 2 to 1, it's a better expression than half. And we have to be careful of loaded questions. Loaded questions is said to put you in trouble. Right? So when someone says that, you're like, yeah, why should she get half? It's like, who said that? Where the Quran says that? And so when you ask someone, where does it say that? You're gonna get stuck. Say, where does it say that? So that's one. Number two, the situation obviously is that we look at the cases we studied so far, we can see some scenarios the man gets less. Some cases, right, the women get less. So we obviously looked at the 4 cases, and usually when it comes to ta'asib, right, when there's a sharing going on, that's where it's up 2 to 1. Otherwise, the cases where the daughter or the woman will get more, and sometimes some men don't get, like sometimes uncles, he's a male, right, you get cut off. So why is this happening? Showing that there's a dynamic element that people don't know. So that's why we have to study this issue. If you go to some of the Mawsu'at, they did a research and showed all the cases, and we studied some of them, where the women get less, or 2 to 1, not all cases. طيب, what's the hikmah behind it? Imam Ibn Qayyim, he writes in Kitab I'lam Muwaqqi'in, volume 3, page 419, as with inheritance, the wisdom of men getting more than the women. What's apparent is that men are more in need of wealth than women because they are the protectors of men. Women, sorry. So they have the qiwam, they're the qawwam. So therefore he spends more, so he needs more. But in the Western culture, the question we ask is, why do you need half or you don't spend half? So I have to turn the question on its head. Why a woman needs half and a brother gets half and you don't spend half the bills? See, when you frame it a different way, it gets problematic, right? The daughter and brother will get 50-50, and then she doesn't pay any bills, he pays all the bills. Where's the justice in that? You see, that's one of the problem with feminism. When it sides with the women, they don't resolve it. You don't hear anything. When it sides against the woman, you hear everything. Right? So we tell them, okay, so when in the cases where you're not spending, because we studied this before, women in our culture till today, they don't spend on the household spending as much as the men. In fact, there's expectation the men will spend, yet they want equal amounts. So we tell them that's not correct. The Sharia balances it. And if you go to Tafsir Adwa Bayan, Alamat al-Shinqiti, he says, rahimahullah, because the one who's in charge of another, in this case the male, and spends his money, will always have his money decreasing. And the one who is being looked after, in this case the woman, and whom money is spent on, right, will always have money saved. So then we have to look at it deeper. Why is the woman getting even a share? For her own security, future, and, as we'll see in a second, her benefit. But he's saying because the man's money is always diminishing and hers is always staying, the wisdom of giving precedence to the one who has money or more demands are made over the one whose expectation is that money will increase is only sound reasoning. Allahu al-Alim al-Hakim. In today's time, we ask the question, if we say 50-50, that means we're expecting what? That the spending, the nafaqah, the spending is going to be equal? Now in the Sharia, we already said the wisdom behind the males being most of the people inheritance are from the paternal side. Why? Because upon them is blood money, upon them is nafaqah. They have to spend on their siblings. If the daughter becomes broke, she gets her portion, she spends it all and wastes it, he still has to take care of her. Sharia, right? The brother, if he has money and she wasted all her inheritance, he can't say tough luck. No, you gotta spend on it. There's never a time she has to spend on herself, either her father or otherwise. So the Sharia accounts for this. But today, unfortunately, we live in a world where, and how many people even studied this topic we studied today, right? This subject, inheritance. They don't even know inheritance, and they're fed the question. So when someone feeds people the question, you have to ask, well, Sharia is wise. And that's why if you go back to the earlier centuries, 19th century, many of the people had favorable views. Some Orientalists spoke favorably about the Sharia and its inheritance. But today we change. So the question we need to ask is that if the Western standards continue to change, they're not in a position to judge. Okay, so 19th century, they're saying the Sharia is the best when it comes to inheritance, mashallah. Then today, like, what's this injustice? So what's the problem? They keep changing. So therefore, they're not a standard to use. You can't have, haqq cannot evolve. Right? Because what's after truth is a falsehood. So it can't be evolving. The same way, in Orientalist period, they used to say Islam is too soft. You guys know this? 19th century, when the British came to India, they were saying the Muslims, the Sharia is too soft, we need more killing. They were complaining the Sharia, the Hanafi law is not killing enough people. So they went, the Anglo-Muhammadan law. Because when the Orientalists took over India, so they needed to mix the Hindus got their law, and then the Sikhs and the Muslims will use the Sharia. So obviously most people Hanafis use the Hanafi law, and they found the Hanafi law is not killing enough people. So they wanted it more, it's less violent. This is what they're complaining. And then today they say you guys are barbaric. What was it barbaric, then or now? Right? So you have to understand it. That's why we tell them, guys, when you figure out what's going on, they'll talk to us. Otherwise, we don't need these criticisms keep changing. But that's showing a benefit that if Islam was unjust, if it was, then we wouldn't find these kinds of wisdoms. On top of the fact that many inheritance across the world has similarities to Islamic law. Alhamdulillah, that's enough of an answer for that. This is another point, which is that in the Sharia, why do women get their inheritance? Why is it important for her to receive haqq? Because in many of the Muslim countries, they are deprived of that. Hadith Jabir ibn Abdullah, في صحيح Sunnah Abi Dawud 2891. One day, Rasul he was out, and the woman of Ansar came to him, Aswaf, And the woman brought her 2 daughters and said, Ya Rasulullah, these are my 2 daughters, or the 2 daughters of Thabit ibn Qais, who were killed as a martyr, a shaheed, when he was with you in the Battle of Uhud. And their paternal uncle has taken all their property inheritance, and he has not left anything for them. What do you think, Ya Rasulullah? Okay, so we can study this case itself. And look what she said then. They cannot get married unless they have some property. Shuf, look at that. They cannot get married unless they have property. Why? Because her own social standing. Right? تنكح المرأة لأربعة ولجمالها ولمالها, right? Some people marry women for the money. Right? You don't have to marry to take that view, right? Marry means your status. Right? The Malik Madhab says you can take the money too, but that's we don't want to take that view, brothers. Right? So that's a view though. You marry her to take her money, astaghfirullah, or to use it. Right? So we say that's not the correct opinion. Maybe Hajar mentions that, but there's that view. But the real correct view, her status goes up. If someone told you a woman has money and status, it's good. But see here, she mentioned this point, and that shows you how much Sharia lifted Jahiliyyah. So the ruling he did, the uncle was wrong. So Nabi Sallallahu, what did he do? The Muslim said, Allah will decide regarding this matter, and Allah will reveal the ayat in Surah Nisa. Then he called the woman, and he told her husband's right, and her husband's brother, and he said, then the paternal uncle gets, right, to give them the 2 daughters, the 2/3, and he gets and the mother 1/8, and what remains is yours. So Nabi Sallallahu divided it. So these are one of the few hadiths where they have the full distribution. Right? So there's a clear example. So how much the paternal uncle will get? Well, let's start with the daughters. 2 daughters get 2/3, mother gets 1/8, and what's remaining goes to the uncle. That's the correct, but he was taking all of it. And today we have that problem still happening, right? People just come and say, I'm the eldest. And so what the benefit we take is that's why the Sharia accounts for the fact that women also benefit money. And let's say they don't get married. At least they have some inheritance. Right? To survive, they have something. And that's what we need to think about this issue for the reverts. And that leads to the next mas'ala. Reverts receiving inheritance from non-Muslim fathers or mothers. The ulama, they differed on this issue, past, not just present, in the past. And it's the issue to do with, we know, and we studied this, one of the asbab, or the rules or conditions or causes, for the inheritance is that you have to have your person deceased and person relative, etc. And then the preventatives, that they can be different religions, some of the preventatives. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he mentioned that explicitly in a hadith. And so when scholars, they look at this hadith, they say, okay, this hadith, when you look at it, it's very clear. The Muslim doesn't inherit from a kafir, and the kafir doesn't inherit from a Muslim. So that's the explicit wording, and that's why many of the scholars, they take that view. لا يرث المسلم الكافر ولا الكافر المسلم. That the Muslim will not inherit from the kafir, and likewise the kafir will not inherit from Muslim. So the scholars, for the most part, they didn't differ. In fact, they agreed. When it comes to the kafir inheriting from the Muslim, it's not allowed. As for the Muslim inheriting the kafir, there's where the ikhtilaf is. There's difference of opinion there. Going far back to the time of the Sahaba, Mu'adh ibn Jabal, Muawiyah bin Abi Sufyan, Muhammad ibn Hanafiya, Sa'id ibn Musayyib, and others. And this is also the view of Ibn Taymiyyah or Ibn Qayyim. That they say that this hadith is not for all kuffar, rather it's talking about kuffar who are combatant, hostile. Yani those kuffar who are at war with the Muslims. To imagine, like there's a situation, Muslim country, or Muslims and non-Muslims are at a state of harb. So will be then, the way that they interpret the hadith is that it's not general, specific. It's am yurid bihi khas. It's a general wording meant to be specific. لا يرث المسلم الكافر. What kind of kafir? They say what's missing الحربي. الكافر الحربي. دون الذمي ولا المنافق والمرتد. Okay, so there's other categories. So what about the murtad, the zindiq, and still this one they say no. This one still can inherit. And the reason why is because if you look at the context of the hadith, they say, as well as the time of Rasulullah after, it's not clear that this was the case. Ibn Qayyim specifically, he goes in depth in this topic, in Ahkam Ahl Dhimma, and goes in great length in debating that this is not correct to say. And the fact that ikhtilaf on that shows it's a mas'ala which is khilaf is qadim wa qawi, it's strong and old. So the reason this is important is because then from this foundation we can build on this nazira nowadays, where we have reverts who their fathers and grandfathers have a lot of wealth, and then they're going to inherit that to their Muslim children, unless they choose not to. But generally they will include them. Can they take it or not take it? Knowing this becomes useful. Again, this mas'ala is best to raise it to a person of knowledge who you trust to look into it. But this is important because sometimes we're talking thousands of dollars. It's not correct to say it's haram, all of it. كيف يعني خلاف قائم يعني there's a strong difference of opinion there and you're going to dismiss it. It's not correct. Especially when you look at the other things around it, which is the hajat and muslimin, especially with the reverts. Because the situation is already vulnerable. If they reverted and they lose their family support, we're going to tell them as well as all the wealth, financial support as well. And it's not like the Muslim community right now in the situation, especially in the West, that we could even help them. Because most of us, we're not worried about that because you're worried about your inheritance. You're not worried about somebody else's. So it's not also a wise look to just dismiss it. Rather, to take a look at this and actually analyze it carefully. And again, like I said, Ibn Qayyim and Taymiyyah, and I said it earlier, they looked at it very deeply. And they look at some of the isharat as well in terms of the different hadith earlier. We don't have time to get all of it, but that's a good mas'ala to say it again. There's different opinions. It's something to look into and to raise somebody more knowledgeable so they can give the proper answer, or at least they investigate for the person. Another issue that comes up is adopted son and inheritance. Right? The adopted son, obviously in Islam there's no tabanni, there's no adoption, there's fostering, but there's no adoption. Adoption means you're taking a child at a young age and you can't transfer that child's lineage to yours. Yani you take them in, so you take care of them and you give them lineage. This is not allowed. In Islam we have fostering. So Zayd, for example, bin Haritha, the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's adopted son, better to say his foster son. Right? And the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam raised them. So adoption means you take them, you give them your last name lineage. It's not allowed. Maqasid of the Sharia, the five major objectives. You can't change lineages and corrupt them. So in the Western world we have this, where people adopt children from across the world. And now the parents have to know this. Since adoption legal here, and Islam will call it fostering because you're raising them, it's highly rewarded, but you can't change their name. What do you do about the inheritance? Because they don't fall into the three causes. They don't. Right? So remember, blood ties, nasab. So when we say nasab, blood ties, not milk relative. So it can be, for example, a sibling from nursing, and nor one who's adopted. So therefore, the ulama, they mentioned that in this kind of situation, if there's such a case, the preference for the parents is to give them some kind of gift while alive. So either they can offer something that will wasiyah for them, or even better than that, if you want to remove this kind of problem, because even the wasiyah, there can be a dispute. Of course, people, they're supposed to follow that, but they don't always. So what could be preferable is that while alive, the parents can give them a gift. And they don't have to even announce it. They can give part of the wealth, right, to them. Of course, not so much, but some amount to suffice them or to take care of them and their needs. And this is wise, because parents should know ahead of time. Right? This is a mas'ala that comes. You don't want to wait till someone dies and say, okay, sorry, you're not part of it. Especially when they live all together. See, when it comes to money, things don't go well. Right? Because everybody's going to be like, well, you're not even our sibling. Right? So we have to be careful of that. So better to try to give some solution while they're alive or to help them. Another issue comes, what about distributing the inheritance without using the distribution or the portions which we studied? So we know in the Sharia we have all these specific prescribed shares. Can we have a distribution that does not include that, or we make our own distribution? And why would someone say that's a good idea? So some scenarios where the distribution Sharia is just, all right, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ahkam al-hakimin, but the problem may be that it might not fit the scenario for that people. It means that there might be an unnecessary burden or circumstances where the mother needs more. So 1/6 is not enough for her. So in a situation we find like mother and then lots of siblings, right? So because father passed away, let's say, and there's brothers and sisters and mother gets 1/6. 1/6 might not be enough for her, and then others are married or older and moved on. So here, can they be what they say is qismatu taradi? Qismatu taradi means you distribute based on everyone's agreeance. So they say Mawsu' al-Fiqhiyya, volume 33, page 217, it says that he needs to kind of agreed upon distribution, even if it's requiring some kind of darar, harm to one another. لكنهم رضوا بها فهذا شأنهم وحدهم. Right, that's for them to do it. Right? وهم أدرى بحاجتهم. Right? بحاجاتهم فلا يكون ثم مانع منها وقد رضوا بضرر أنفسهم. So it means that when you change the distribution, it's going to cause harm to somebody. Harm here means the mother gets more, the children get less. لكن قد رضوا, يعني they're pleased with that. And the reason why this can come useful is in the scenarios where you have elder siblings and the mother is either living alone or with another sibling, and the sibling who's taking care of her needs more. I think usually younger siblings, someone's going to take care of them, right? So using that situation, everyone's going to say, well, how about your mother? How about our mother? How are we going to take care of her? So what they can say is, okay, we're going to give her not 1/6, 1/3, 1/4, whatever, like one half, whatever they think is fit, so that brother can take care of her, and then we don't have to worry. So that way you can also alleviate that burden, because they're going to take care of her anyways. So these kinds of scenarios, that's permissible if they all agree. If they don't agree, then you have to go back to the Sharia standard, or you go to Mahkama Shari'iyya, go to the Islamic governments. Means if they don't agree, you have to do Islamic way. Faridatun min Allah, right? That's from Allah. Another mas'ala connected to that would be like if there's a situation where in the Western world where we have a case here, we have a law here that you don't have inheritance, the will, you inherit and distribute it according to Western law. So that's why for us, the wasiyah, which we didn't talk about it here, but the wasiyah has impact, right, in terms of how we structure our inheritance. So generally the wasiyah is recommended. It's not wajib, it's highly recommended. But in a situation in the Western world where the wasiyah is very useful, it's needed to ensure Islamic, so the wasiyah is the will, to Islamic inheritance be done. And the reason why it's important is because it can be, without that, then the case can then be left to the law of the land, which we give their distribution. Right? So 50% for the spouse, between the spouse and the siblings, khalas, that takes everything and everybody else is out. So the scenario obviously means in our cases, in the Western world, having wills are very important. And there's ahkam to the wasiyah, we can't get into now, but that's why having a will is important, which someone puts in their will, I would like my inheritance to be distributed Islamically, according to Islamic law, whoever sheikh or person you want to do it for you. At the same time, it's also important to know that the wasiyah has rules, and one of the things that's connected to it, which we didn't cover, but it's like, okay, if you have the wasiyah, you say Islamic way, but what is the wasiyah allowed? 1/3 allocation to non-heirs. Maximum, Hadith Sa'ad bin Bukhari Muslim, 1/3. 1/3 of the wealth can be allocated to things like charities or like masajid or whatever, is what someone likes to give. But then what happens if the will, which again the will is very important for us, is to protect the distribution. Right? Otherwise, without the will, it can be often taken to court and things can happen. But let's say in the will there's an amount given for wasiyah, 1/3, and there's also amount given to an heir. So in Islamically, the hadith mentions not allowed for the heirs to inherit, right? Sorry, to bequest, to get a bequest. So now wasiyah lil warith. There's no wasiyah for the inheritors. The Jumhur ulama, they hold the view that if they allow it, and everybody allows it, he can take. But another group of ulama say no, this is not correct, because this is a clear text. So therefore, if let's say the father left behind whatever amount, 1/6, 1/3, whatever, for he's one of his sons, and he's also an heir, the Jumhur ulama say he can take that if they all agree. Otherwise, it's not allowed. Because if they don't agree, it's not allowed to give him. But the minority views it's not allowed for him to even to get it aslan, because not his haqq, it's not allowed for him to give that. And that's a stronger view, Allahu Alam, because it's not, the clear text is not allowed. So in that kind of scenario, the wasiyah will be enacted on, except for that part. That part will not be enacted on, and sometimes that's why it's important to have a will. In most cases nowadays, people don't have. So the more dangerous part, and which is something we should encourage people to learn more about the wills and the importance of it, is that if someone's will, he doesn't have to put all these rules. That's why me and you are here. So we studied it for what? In the will, someone say, I would like my inheritance to be distributed Islamic way, then they're going to come to you, inshallah, you will do it. That's it. But in terms of putting in the details, and this one will get this much and that one, it might not be the best idea, and also sometimes not necessary. Why? Because if the will has been signed and with the testator, etc., it's considered valid. So all you need to do is that you go to the masjid, the person who you want to distribute, and they will distribute Islamically. So that's important. But although even will can be tested or challenged, but it's a more detailed thing. But it's good to have that will, and that's why it's connected to what we're talking about. So we highly encourage people to study these laws, but also to encourage people to have the will, to understand the value of it. Because again, most people don't, and they don't think about that. One more masala, what about if someone wants to pull out his share and to sell it to another? This is permissible as well. So let's say with one of the siblings or one of the heirs doesn't want his share. Can he do like a buyout, for example? He gives his share of the house for exchange for money. This is allowed. If he relinquishes his share, that's also allowed if he wants. Because in Islam, the principle is the haqq that you have, you're allowed to forgo it. So let's say you have 1/3 of the house, or whatever, is yours, the value of it. You can say, I don't want it. Or you can say, I don't want the house, give me the value of it, and then if they agree, they give you that. Or if someone says, for example, I don't want it at all, another person can take it. So how would you distribute it? You distribute it as normal, the case, and at the end, whoever doesn't want it, then they can decide for themselves. That's allowed as well, just like it's allowed, as we said, to distribute it their own way. Wallahu a'lam. Inshallah, we'll end with that much. Next week, inshallah, we'll have a test. So we encourage the brothers to review what we studied, inshallah ta'ala. And yes.
I want to go back to the issue on page 79 one more time. It mentioned that the mother has 1/6, I think. Isn't that?
So we corrected it ours on the one I was working on. We said it should be 1/3.
But shouldn't it remain 1/6 because?
So what I wrote here is full sibling. If it's a sibling, it's supposed to be 1/3. We say child, right? Because sibling could means like a brother or sister. Child means a child. So a man passes away, leaving behind hermaphrodite, full sibling.
But can't a full sibling, whether it's because I think it's mentioned in the conditions for a mother.
It has to be 2 or more.
Has to be full.
Yeah, 2 or more. So here it's not. So it has to be 2 or more siblings, any brothers or sisters, or fara'. So in this case, if I change it, I think I'm going to change it to a man passes away, leaving behind a hermaphrodite son. That makes it easier. If we say sibling, that will mean it's the sister or brother of the man, and it's only one. So for a mother to get 1/6, what's the rules? There have to be 2 or more. When you can, ikhwa, 2 or more. That's it. So but the wording, obviously, I put sibling, but I calculated for as a son, right, or a daughter. So inshallah, either I'm going to change that or change this one. But we got the concept. Yes.
A scholar or judge rules that a revert will inherit from kafir. Do they take their portion according to the Sharia, or do they take their portion according to whatever comes to them based on the calculations done by the family?
So that's the tricky part. The brother's asking if the kafir is inheriting to us, is he binding in our laws? They're going to give whatever they give according to them. So that's not, again, going back to him. It's not his sin. Because that's a rizq which is matloob. It's a rizq coming your way. You don't have anything to do with that. You don't have to. So if it comes to your house, whatever, it's just that's between them. Because you can't tell them, well, like 1/2. They gotta say you get 0, then you get out of here, So we gotta say whatever comes. And that shows you again that if it comes, the question is, can he take it or not? Usually the scenario is that the family is already distributed or has already put in the will that he's gonna get something. However distributed. So that's their business, because we can't apply that. But the question is, should we take it or not? That's where the discussion is. Allahu A'lam, yes. So if we say now that he's determined to be the missing person dead, so he's made hukmi, he's done according to our rule, and then he comes back, the correct view is too late, because he came back after the set period. So they gave him the possibility of returning in that duration. So that's why that's why they differ. Should we make it wider, the amount, or more? So some of the ulama say that whatever the judge sees fit. But so if he comes after that, there's nothing for him. Right? And I don't think that's his first concern anyways, because maybe he wasn't going to come back. It comes with that. For example, also look at the hadith in Muslim, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in Fath al-Makkah, when he entered, and he was there, he was missing for how many years? Right? Fath al-Makkah, they came 8 Hijri, they come back, there's nothing. So he asked, did Aqil leave us anything? So when Abu Talib died, there's Talib and Aqil, then there's Ja'far, Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, they didn't get anything. They're Muslims, they're kafir. So when he came, they said, there's nothing. So some they say, obviously they're going to, if the hukum was made, that it's considered as if he's dead. Even though he came back, that's what the word hukmi would be. Because that's fair for everybody else. But that's why the judge will determine what's a fair amount, to which that is not done. Obviously he's not going to say 1 week. He'll be like, okay, like sometimes it's a year or whatever if he's fit. In today's time, it is not that difficult because of the fact that most people will know about. But if someone has in their family, where there's an heir who's important for the case. If he's far away, it doesn't bother. Like, uncle is going to be cut off. It's not a big deal. But let's say there's someone who's near, like you have a close brother, He went MIA. This is very important to discern that now. But you're right. If he comes back, khalas, the judgment made, and wallahu alam. Yes. So if somebody has inheritance and wants to forego it, yes, you can choose because it is haqq. If you have your haqq, you say, I'm going to give it to this person. I don't want it. But obviously, the situation comes usually when they trade the wealth. For example, part of the inheritance could be a house, a car, and the value in that. So that's another thing. The value, sometimes some of the inheritance can be divided in parts and some by value. So what he'll do is, I don't want my portion of the house because that's his house. I don't want anything to do. I just want the value of it. So I want to make a business. So give me that and they trade. So he adds, this guy will take the house, this guy will get the value. But he can choose because it's his haqq. Right? So that's what he can do. Yes. So nowadays, well, the modern technology usually explains to us that the unborn baby most likely would know, right, during the duration, if it's most likely male or female. So that makes our case easier. But the best scenario is to wait. Because it just saves so much time. You don't need to, worry about all the scenarios, possibilities, save some money, where we're going to save it. So many issues, just wait. But what happens is that if it happens like this, then this is what we'll do. But you can use them as a kind of determination to help. But I think if you go to classical way, we just do it as is and we wait. And that's why the family should know ahead of time all the scenarios, and we give them that information that it's better to wait and then come back. And it's only about 1 year or less they're gonna have to wait. So depending on, so they don't have to worry. So that's the best way. But if they don't, then we say we do this. Allahu Alam, yes. So in these cases, when someone has no relative and nothing, some they say goes to the Baytul Mal, the Muslim treasury. In today's time, some say the Marrakech or Islamic institutions are like this. And this is another nazira too. What do we do with that money? Because there are some reverts who have no family and there's no one could take from them and they have money. So that's one of them. They have to ask Ahlul Ilm. That's one of the ones, because anyone's going to say it's just going to go to us. That's not correct. Rather, we're going to say then this one we have to ask Ahlul Ilm, because this money is traditionally supposed to go. Because some in the hadith Nabi mentioned, I'm an inheritor and one doesn't have an inheritor, which would insinuate that Baytul Mal is there for the benefit of the Muslimin. But today, if you open that door, everyone's gonna, a lot of relatives are gonna appear. Let's just say that, They're gonna say, I'm also his brother. Yes. So if he died before reaching puberty and the heir to spare of the matter becoming clear, means this heir is supposed to be a sibling or brother or whatever, a child. And then they died, right? So they died before puberty. So they are part of the case, then they died. Either before distribution, or usually in the case after the person died. So it's going to be like the munasakhat we talked about. So the usual situation is going to be someone died, then there's a sibling. That sibling is supposed to be male or female, but then he dies. So then what do? Then we go to this case. Then after that, what do? We have to give the money back to the people again. So ultimately, this case is very rare. It's very rare. So that's what he's saying, that the real mas'ala was, how do we determine that person's case if we don't know his gender? That was the mas'ala. But again, how likely is that today? Today they say with the DNA you can tell to the genes if somebody's male or female. So that makes it easier. But that's what they mean. If we don't know someone died, we're supposed to give him money, and we don't know how much to give him. And he also died. So this is why it's very improbable. That's why it's always the end. It's a very unlikely case. But that's what you would do, and then after that you can redistribute. Yes. So they're gonna take the middle amount. So if it was a male, because he died before puberty. If he reached puberty, he might have been a male. If he reached puberty, he might have been a female. So they're gonna give him the middle. So the middle amount we looked at, 13 out of 24. So that he gets half the possible shares he would have got. Not the lowest, not the highest. Yeah, and then so we did the male case, female case, we put them together. How much is he gonna get then? The middle between those two cases. So if you look at a 7, for example, go to the one we did at the end. Where was that case? We just did the one you guys did. What was it? Yeah. So how much? What was the solution? 11 out of 24. So how much is that percent? And then I did that. You get it, right? So if you look at the two scenarios, the male one and female one, it goes right in the middle. So he's not gonna get as if it's a male, nor is the amount of female, right in the middle. Just because we don't know. So we're gonna go on the side of what's more just. You give them the lowest will be unfair because we're assuming that it's a female we don't approve, and we wouldn't go the highest, we go in the middle. You could do that, or you could do dividing, as you said. You can do, but end day, as long as you get in the middle. But adding them by changing and making the base, putting the base together, makes it the same. So let's look at the calculation. That will make it easier for you to remember. So who has it written? I have it written down here. So the situation we said is gonna be 11 out of 24. So 5 out of 12. Right, how much percent is that? So let's quickly do it. 5 out of 12. We did 5 out of 12 is 42%. Right, and 6 out of 12, and then 50%, and 11 out of 24 is 46%. So that's what they're gonna get. 46% in total instead of 42 or 40 or 50. 50. So they get on 46 if you put them together. So they say roughly right in the middle. And that's the idea behind it. And then some of the ulama have a different way of calculating the half. But the point is, that's what they're saying. Somewhere in the middle. And the reason is because we can't be sure it's either side. So that's more just. Wallahu a'lam. Yes.
Mention that for giving a wasiyah to the inheritors, even if the is not allowed. What's the difference between that and
so the issue of the inheritance, the bequest, they have a clear nas. So that one says you're not allowed to give the heirs anything from the wasiyah, because what is going to end up happening, they're going to get their share plus. So some of the scholars, Jumhur, they said there's a riwayah of the hadith, ilan yasha'u, or ilan yasha'. Let's say they allow or they want. So here, this riwayah is da'if. This riwayah is da'ifa, that addition, ziyada. So the asl is, the sharia says not allowed. So they say then doing this is amal batil. The sharia prohibited that for the reason that it's going to create fighting. But now if the other group says that, but they all agreed. So that's a Jumhur view. Since they agreed, it's the same. It's like they agreed. But the other group, they said, no, leave it. There's nas, we shouldn't go against it. Whereas Qism Taradi, it means that if we all agree, but seldom the people agree. So what is the wisdom behind inheritance law? People are naturally greedy. We love money too much, so we're always going to fight. So the Sharia, Allah brought down the rules. But in the case, there's some people, mashallah, with good hearts who all agree. But then again, everyone has to agree. So, and that's another thing where they say, like, if they agree is a shartiyah, which is conditionality, which is probably not going to happen. Because one brother here, the father gives somebody something, nope, no way he's going to give that. So that's another debate. Allahu a'lam. Yes.
In the case of the Bahrain, whose opinion takes precedence? Meaning, if the mother takes one opinion and the father takes another, then whose opinion is followed, knowing that the opinion taken could create big gaps in the outcome, and then if the slide could be open in the future.
In the case of this situation, it's not for the mother and father to decide. The person who's doing the inheritance. So it's not for them to decide. They're not the one deciding. So the view of the Jumhur is ahwat, safer, because the fact that Jumhur ulama took it, and it's also the verdict of Umar. But it's not for the mother and father to decide. That's why we say the first rule, just you take the Ahl Khibra. That's inshallah, we're going to try to be helping them. Otherwise, Fasir Hadika Kuntu Ta'alamun. And most ulama go with the majority view. But it's not going to be now like the mother's going to say, I need more, and the father's going to say, no, Ali, you can't get more. And that's why we go back to the rule, which is that the person who's going to judge is going to, inshallah, give them what's fairest. And that's how we go. So the rule is, when it comes to inheritance, once someone passes away, it's going to be the person who's an expert, the alim, or the person who's going to distribute. The assessor is going to value the wealth, right? And then all other parties, because debts and everything else. So there's lots of people involved. So that's how we're going to, that's why we keep encouraging, go to people of knowledge. Right? Yes, brother, you have a question? Say that again, brother? Yeah, so the insanity of heir, it would not prevent that, because it's still an heir. So the person who, for example, we said, rajul, for example, in this case, we're all fixed, and let's say from the ta'asib, أو رجل ذكر. So now, if it's a child, it's unborn, right? They don't have much aql, or they're older, because it's still the haqq. But then let's say who's going to be controlling the guardian. So that's why you have, for example, an orphan who gets, some money from somebody, from, let's say, from his uncle's side, someone gives him money. The guardian's going to watch it over for him. So we will not change that, right? So it's not a preventative. So because here we're talking about huquq of money, just like the zakat, when we study zakat, an insane person may have as money that's given to him, and then they fell insane, the money starts to pay zakat on it. Even though they cannot pay it, their guardian will pay for them. So yes, inshallah, we'll end with this much. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta